That's what old power steering hoses look like. See how rusted out it is and weeping? We'll come back. You can even see the fluid dripping here up underneath the reservoir. You can't see in there. It's leaking under the reservoir. That line is leaking there as well. So I'm looking for that famous BMW M feel in my steering, and this is just not acceptable. So I'm going to be replacing all of these hoses. With the airbox removed, you can see the power steering fluid reservoir and how disgusting it is. And if you look down, you can see the two lines coming from there. Just absolute junk. So yeah, needless to say, this was a long overdue job. Okay, as we saw, I have leaks all over the place, so I'm going to start with a new reservoir. And of course the new O-ring to go with it. This is directional, so we'll make sure that that goes on the right way. We have on the real OEM guide, hose number 1. We have hose number 10. And this obviously hooks up to the power steering pump. We have hose number, what is it, number 9. This way. And finally we have the high pressure power steering hose number 3 on the real OEM guide. So this should stop all of our leaks, because I saw leaks here, I saw leaks under here, and I saw leaks here and here. So I'm sure the reservoir is shot and all the other hoses are shot, so might as well replace them all up and bring back that famous BMW steering. Oddly enough, it feels fine, but obviously it does not look fine. So it's time to get this thing done. Okay, so now I'm back underneath, and you can see there's a hose clamp connected to the power steering pump, and that feeds up back into the reservoir. So I'm gonna start by loosening that connection to drain, and I have a catch basin right here. So I'm gonna go ahead and loosen that off as my first hose to so let that guy drain out. Okay, we're back up top. The other hose connected to the reservoir goes into the cooler here, and you can see it's the one that's the closest to the driver's seat. And this has a little clip that you push down and pull up. And so I'm going to unclip that, and then that'll be both hoses disconnected from the reservoir. Okay, that was pretty simple to remove. Back over to the reservoir, there's a 10mm bolt. You take that out and then easily remove the reservoir from here. There is a clip. It was holding on those hoses. Mine was pretty worn, so it broke off. That's okay, because I'm going to upgrade it with racing spec zip ties. Okay, so we have the reservoir removed. You can see the other power steering hose is right there behind, and it connects up. And if you follow it along to the back, it connects to the steering rack on the mount that is closest to the front bumper. So I'm going to go ahead and remove that hose next. Alright guys, so next I'm going to go ahead and disconnect those two bolts there. And I had a bit of a delay because I had to go and buy a 22mm socket, and that's the cool thing about doing projects on your own, is you get to go and buy more tools all the time. So I'm gonna take those off and disconnect the other end, and that will drain the rest of the fluid out of there, and then I can go ahead and start replacing them. Okay, so here's the difference between old and new. As you can see, the old is pretty beat up. And you're going to want to make sure that when you do the reassembly that you use the crush washers and replace those as well, one on each side. And so that goes back on. So the other high pressure hose that I have, actually the plastic on the top of the disconnect was weak and broke off. So I'm going to have to go in and figure out how to remove the clips underneath and then the other hose will be off as well, but it just goes to show how long they've been in there. The plastic was completely deteriorated and it just completely just fell off when I pushed on it. It just completely disintegrated. Okay guys, quick view from the top. I've reattached the first high pressure power steering line, torqued it into spec there, and you can see over here as well. And when you're putting this on, you want to make sure that you don't get that power steering line too close to the sway bar. It has a tendency to move over towards the sway bar as you're tightening up, so be careful of that. And over here, if you can see, the other one, the plastic clip broke off as soon as I pushed down on it, just with my hands. So very brittle. So I need to get that off before I can replace the other one. So that's the next challenge, but I decided that I would go ahead and get the other one on and torque it up. So I'll give you a quick view from underneath. Okay, so we're underneath. You can see I have the new line on. And you'll also notice in my case I removed the reinforcement plate for the front axle because I wanted to do a better inspection on other parts here in the winter. And if you do take it off, the bolts are one-time use. And I understand it's a safety issue, so it's a part of how the system buckles. So I'll be reattaching that with new bolts. But yeah, the first one's in. So okay guys, I did manage to get it off. I'll show you what happened looking on this new one. Hopefully this will focus. You can see here, I'll just focus it in. There's a plastic connector, and when you push on that, it pushes metal clips down. Well, this whole piece of plastic, when I pushed on it, completely fell apart. So that was on with no plastic and the clips were mounted. So what I did is I just slowly cut into the edge until the mechanism was weak enough and slipped it off. So yeah, so I'm back in business, but I think what happened was there was a whole bunch of dirt and grime that went in on the top, and then everything was kind of clogged up, and over time this also deteriorated. All right, here's another before and after picture. And so I recommend you actually do this loose assembly on the ground so that way you can line up the hoses the same. Be careful to check for the directional arrow on the reservoir. Also note that I'm just using regular hose clamps. You can reuse these original clamps. I don't know, for me I'm just going old school, and there's nothing better than an original old-fashioned hose clamp. Okay, so as you can see, I did manage to get that hose off and replaced, so it's all torqued up, and oh, there goes my flashlight, and it's reconnected over here. So next is just put on the reservoir, put the reservoir back on, and then bleed the system. Now there is a strap that holds those high pressure hoses together to the chassis. Since mine crumpled, sorry about the blurry camera here, but I'm gonna go with racing spec zip ties. Okay, have the reservoir back in. The bolt that I had is pretty stripped there in there, so it was already like that. So I'm gonna find an alternate solution for that. In the meantime, I'm gonna fill it up. So I'm going to be using ATF, the Castrol variant that most people use. So I'm going to go ahead and put that in. Okay, I filled it up and turned the motor on obviously, and I went wheel lock to wheel lock about 6 or 7 times, topped it up a bit. Everything is looking good, so what I'm going to do now is check for leaks and we'll see how it's going, but so far so good. It looks awesome, sounds great. I just need to fix that bolt that's stripped, and we're done. Success! Okay, so that's it. I got the power steering hoses all done, fixed that nut, got everything tied down, no leaks, everything's looking great, so I'll keep an eye on it as things go. So I really appreciate you guys watching. If you have any comments, any feedback, go ahead and post that down below. And yeah, so we'll keep the mods coming. We got some really great builds coming up, so I look forward to that. Cheers.